Good morning. It's time for Groovi Tuesday again. How are you all doing? I know it'll take a few minutes for everybody to pop in a little bit early to the party. A nice cup of coffee from Jilly. Thank you, Jilly. Good morning. Good morning, Nancy, all the way from the States. How are you doing? This is lovely. Tuesday again. Favorite day of the week. Good morning, Jill, Susan, morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. I've remembered. Hilda, hello. Hopefully I've managed to put the volume on. Yes, Chili's just texted me the sound is good. I remembered this week. I thought it's important to have the sound on so you can hear what I'm waffling about. Good morning, Ken. Happy Groovi Tuesday. How are you all doing? Good morning, Yvonne. It's so nice to see so many happy, familiar faces in the room. Dear. Yeah, Tuesday again. And Josie's in the room as well. There's so many lovely people in the room. It just warms the heart. It really does. So, have we all been? Have we all been behaving? All been good? All been crafting? Getting on with lots of crafty projects? I loved what Barb did in the shack yesterday. Was you there? I'm sure you was. And it was just that ribbon. All of a sudden it came from those swirls and you had that beautiful ribbon effect. I'd never seen Barb do that before. And it was just magical. It really was. And the little flowers, it really was lovely. So, where are we going today? Did you all do your homework? Did you all do a little bit of white work from last week? I bet it didn't take you too long, did it? No, I'm sure it didn't. So we'll give it a few more minutes just for a few more people to join the party. It's spot on 10 o'clock, which, 10 o'clock already. It's been a busy old morning already here at Clarity Towers, and it's brilliant. So, homework indeed. It's nice to see all the lovely names just popping up. Another sip of coffee, I think. So we've been looking at Barbara's beautiful paisley sampler plate, and we've only really touched on just one of the actual designs. Let me bring the plate into play while we're all getting our coffee and our tea ready. So we've got 9 beautiful designs. Let me just zoom out a little bit. I put another tight shirt on today, so I'm trying to stretch. Oh, there we go. Less chocolate, I think. So we've been looking at Barb's beautiful paisley plate, and I know hundreds of you have been taking part in that and joining along, and we've been making a lovely little bookmark to have 9 beautiful designs that you can use independently. You can use them together. We had a look, didn't we, at the beginning, where we just sort of broke them down to take the elements. See, that's the great thing with the Groovi system, is to take all the elements and break it down step by step. Because when you look at the completed image and then you start to analyze it and look at different areas, it can change the look of the original design. And for me, that is the beauty of the Groovi system, being able to do that. So when you look, you've got one design there from the 9, and that's just a minimum of what you can do. And I'm sure once you get familiar with it, you'll find different areas to it as well. And then we have this one. I love this one. This reminds me of a weird sort of way, a bit of a little birdie with a little eye. That looks like a little prehistoric birdie. It's funny what the eye sees, isn't it? And then we've got the next one. So we're at number 3. I love this one. I think this is sort of really retro. I mean, these are all great for men, women, children, adults. Just so many different occasions. And just so, just to have the aperture. I mean, when you break it down, you could do some picot cutting in each of those areas. You can fill it in with some other designs. It gives you that beautiful paisley design. Look, the little hearts, the droplets. You could use that in corners. You could use it as a border. Really beautiful. And this is the one that I've been working on, what I call the little strawberry one. It does look like a strawberry, doesn't it? I think as we approach summer, strawberries and cream, and why have I got food on the brain this morning? I don't know. There you go. Food and craft, you can't go wrong. And then we have this one here. I love this leafy flourish. Again, useful for so many different occasions. And then we've got this one here. See, I love this. This little, it's like a really funky sort of like modern sun. If you know what I mean? Or am I just talking gobbledygook? Yeah, I'm sure you can see all these things that I can see as well. We're all on the same crazy wavelength. And this one, I love this one. This, again, depending on what way you look at it, I sort of like, that's like a little man. There's his little arms. Oh dear, dear, oh dear. And I love this one as well. This is, I love the netting effect on the inside of the panel. So that's just a sort of a recap if you're new to the Groovi party, Groovi Tuesday, and what we've been looking at over the past 2 weeks, I think now. Yeah, we had, this is the third week, isn't it? So we've been creating this beautiful bookmark, and we've broken it down stage by stage. So I've got some of the beautiful Antarctica backing paper. And last week, we added in our lovely little sentiment, didn't we? Some of you did, some of you didn't. Some of you chose to add another design. But it was all about remembering which tool to use so that we could do the white work. So if we wanted to do white work in specific areas, then it was better to trace out the design with the number 2 tool, because it gives you that softer edge. And then the crisp light white line. See, when we look at this, let me come in a little bit closer now. So if I just stretch up, and we'll come in, whee, really close on that one. There's no natural hard line around these designs because we used the number 2 tool to trace out our artwork, didn't we? So let's see if I've got one here where we've done the same type of thing. Here we go. So if I bring this one in, you can see how the bright white line was traced out with the number 1, and this more faded line is traced out with the number 2. And what that does is it allows us to get more of a natural look when we complete our white work. Now my one's probably got about 3 or 4 different layers. You could do a few more if you choose to. It's entirely up to you. But it was all about just sort of getting together and sort of just playing and seeing what we can come up with. And remember I showed you we could also go vertical as well. If I do it that way, you can see that a little bit more better. So it doesn't necessarily have to go in a landscape orientation. And it was all about taking our little letterboxes from the Platemate. And remember, we wrote the words down on a piece of parchment. And the reason we wrote it on a piece of parchment was because if we turn it over, we can then read our word backwards. Because as we know, we have to write backwards on parchment. And sometimes I still struggle and I still spell it wrong, even though I've written it down on a piece of paper. But it's all about just trying to make it a little bit more easier and a little bit more achievable. And again, I could have put the letters in my boxes first and used that as a template as well. Okay, so it was whether I went, there we go, look, we went with For You, which would be the set of 3 boxes, top and bottom, or With Love, which is 4 boxes. And on my finished piece, I've just gone with Sun, because I thought that was nice and generic. It makes a beautiful present for someone, and it's really achievable. It really is. So what are we going to need for today? So we're going to do some colouring. Now, in previous episodes, we've looked at the Perga liner pencils and we've looked at the Perga colour pens. So we're going to have a bit of a recap on the different things that you can do with the pens and with the pencils. So to make it nice and easy, I'm just sticking with 2 colours. So I am going with, in my Perga liner pencils, I'm going with my Perga liner B4 and B9, which is a nice blue and a nice orange, because I think it gives a nice regal look. And then with the Perga colour pens, I've gone nice and bright. I've gone with the number 1 and the number 28. So again, you can decide what you have at home, what you want to colour in with. If you've got the polychromo pencils, then there'll be some beautiful colourways in there. Now I've gone with the blue and the yellow and the blue and the orange because I've already decided my backing paper is from the Antarctica collection. And when I position that on top, the yellow really does sort of, it looks more gold in colour. So that's what we're going to need for say. You also, if you're going with the pens, you may want to go with your mix mat. With your mix mat. And then I've also going to show again the little technique that using the water brushes, but without any water in them. So we'll just have a bit of a recap on the different effects that you can get by using the different colouring instruments. Whew. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes just to get all your colouring bits and pieces together and your artwork, and then yeah, we'll get going again. I can't believe the time we know when we do Groovi shows on the TV on the craft store, we have to have it in stages so we can jump to it, because there's never ever enough time in an hour. You could have 2-3 hours and you still really, to go from start to finish, madness. But that is the beauty and the elegance of the Groovi system, being on that bus journey, as Barb says, and you deciding. And it's great to see over these past, what we know, episode 16 weeks, how some people have got the starter kit and they've started that journey and they've got the confidence to be able to trace out the beautiful lineup. Yeah, we've made mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes, and I keep them, and then I can look back and go, oh, where did I go wrong? Yeah, that's what I did. I used the wrong end of the tool. I got carried away when I was tracing out. So it's that sort of a reference. And then you could stop at that point and just trace out. You don't have to do anything more if you don't want to. But it's all about sort of getting that confidence, and hopefully with the little tips and tricks that we give out over the course of these Groovi Tuesdays and the Shack from Barb, because a lot of the tips that I give out, Barbara's already covered in the Shack, especially with the colouring in and the technique. The shading in of the colour is the same as doing white work if you want to get a beautiful sort of like layered effect. And we'll cover that over the coming weeks on some of the other Paisley designs as well, because there's some real scope for doing that beautiful sort of natural shading look. So before we get started, I just wanted to, did you see the Pergamano show last week? Tina's embroidery plates, they went berserk. So if you missed out on those, let me just quickly show you these. Embroidery, parchment, do they go? Definitely do. Let's have a look at the, oh, I'm going to zoom out again. Oh, I'm definitely getting my exercise in today. There we go. So we had two beautiful designs from Tina. We have the lovely petal plate, and we have the teardrop plate. So they were the brand new designs from Tina Cox. Beautiful Groovi plates, just traced out. If you're thinking embroidery, no way am I picking up a needle and thread. You don't have to. It's all about just looking at the design, because the Groovi plate works exactly the same. And then if you decided to do the embroidery, then this is what they look like, just embroidered with black thread that Tina created for us. Isn't that gorgeous? I love it. It's the Spirelli type of look, isn't it? Really, really beautiful. And of course, you get your patterns from Tina as well, and also a blown up stitched guide for certain areas as well. And here's a couple of samples just to whet your appetite if you miss them. So this beautiful one created with some silver threads that we have available. Isn't that gorgeous? I love the monochromatic look. Then we want to go colour. So we've got the lovely teal parchment with some gold thread. Then if you don't want to do any stitching, anybody that's been following along, this was a piece created by the lovely Jane Telford for me. anyone that's been doing Groovi, part of the Groovi Tuesday, you would definitely be able to achieve this with what we've covered over the past 16 weeks. Okay, and then we've got this lovely multicolored example from the lovely Carol P. So I just thought I'd showcase those. Right, so should we do some colouring? So remember, we always have a practice piece. Where's my practice piece gone? It was here a moment ago. Where's it gone? Let's pop those bits to one. Here it is. Okay. And what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at a couple of different colouring techniques that we've covered in the past. But you know what? Sometimes it's good just to have a recap and a refresh, because you'll think, oh, I forgot how we did that. And you can go back and watch on our YouTube channel, because all of these episodes are available there. But sometimes when you're in the moment, you'll think, oh, what did he do? And because we're taking this beautiful bookmark through its stages, then now's the time to add some colour. So we're going to go over to the overhead, and I'm going to stretch up yet again and zoom in. There we go. How close can I come in? I reckon that's probably as close. If I bring my hands in, whether it will go into focus. There we go. Okay. So as we've said before, you've got various different options in relation to your colouring in. Whether you want to go with the pencils or whether you want to go with the pens. Decisions, you decide. And a lot of people at home will have both. You'll also have the polychromos as well, and these will work fantastically on parchment as well. Right, another sip of coffee and draw a breath. Okay. We'll start off nice and easy with our pencils. So I've just taken two colours. I've taken an orange and a blue to tie in with my background. Now, sometimes it's easier to choose your background paper before you decide on your colour. So have a look at your designer papers, flick through, see if you've got one that a favourite. I'm always torn between Amazonia, Indian Summer, Toscana. Well, there's loads really. But it's just about having the decision on how you want to colour. And then the pencils or the pens will enhance the colour from the paper. Now, when we're working with the pencils, I'm going to do one in blue on this side and one in yellow on this side. So this is my warm-up. When we're working with the pencils, if I was to go on really, really heavy, I'd get a nice coverage, but what I also get is a grainy effect. So when I turn this over and I hold that up, can you see how you've got that grainy effect? And there really isn't any reason to use that much pencil, because all we need is enough pigment from the pencil to be able to break it up with the Dorso oil. And for me, that is the magic of the pencils and the Dorso oil. Another benefit of the pencils is that if I don't like the colour, I can take my eraser pencil and I can wipe it out. I can rub it out and start from scratch. And it also means that if I go over the edges because I'm being impatient like I normally am, then I can take my eraser and I can rub that out as well. So if I take just a I'm just going to scribble on sort of like a base coat really, because that's all I need. So when I put this card underneath, you can see it really is sort of scratchy and there's not much colour on there at all. Because this is where we bring in the magic of the Dorso crayons. Not the Dorso crayons, the Dorso oil. But you could use the Dorso crayons as well. Now I've got my little spot-on sponge, well loved and well used. And I'm going to put a couple of drops of the lovely Dorso oil. Smells lovely. Really sort of makes the room smell nice as well. And then if I take my blending pen and a blending nib. Now, I know from experience that if even just by tapping gently into this oil, the nib just goes, it soaks up all the oil, and I have way too much on the nib, and what will happen is it will take the color off. Now, when I'm coloring in, I color in on the back because it's always more forgiving, especially if you're doing sort of various different areas. So if I wanted to color all these in, where I've done my white work, it means that I haven't got to worry about the white lines on the front because they will still stay white. Okay. And when you're coloring, because the process of it, it's really weird. When you trace out the design using the Groovi plate, what's happening is you're breaking the fibers of the parchment. You're sort of stressing it out and you're turning it white. So on the front, what you have are the fibers are exposed. So if you wanted to apply some color to the front, you really have to be careful about staying away from the white lines, because as soon as color, especially if you're using a pen, as soon as the color hits it, it will bleed into the fibrous raised line. Whereas on the back, it doesn't. It's really weird. It's, I suppose, because it's pushed it, and it will still, it touches it, but it doesn't bleed, so to speak. So if I take a little bit of the oil, and you saw how I literally just tapped it on there, but I know that I've got way too much on there. So I've got a scrap of parchment, and I'm just taking off some of the oil. I don't know if you can see it, but look how much, can you see? Yeah, look, all that oil on there. And that was just a little dib, really a little dib of the oil. So now if I take my, and I'm just going to go in. Now what it's doing, I can see this instantly. I've still got too much oil on the nib, because what it's doing, it's just moving it around, and it's blending, but it's moving it around and lifting it off at the same time. So when I pop that under, we can see the difference. Maybe let's try this, see if you can see this. But I can see it moving, and it's sort of watery, but I don't want it watery. It needs to be less oily. And the oil evaporates, but you can see here where we're just taking it off. And now when I go back in, see, look, it's still taking it off. There's still way too much on there. But I'm not worried, because what I can do is once I've done my initial coat, I can go back in, put another light layer of the pencil down again. So you can build up the intensity of the color. There we go. So it's now starting. It's still a little bit too much. How much did I press it into? I thought I only tapped it. See, it's all about. So it's always nice to have a little practice first. So when we turn it over, we can see how the colors, it's a lot smoother, isn't it? We've got that solid line there, so we can, but that's only from the nib. And I'm just putting light circular motions. I'm not putting any pressure on. And once I've done it, if I'm still not happy with what I've done, then I can rub it all out again. I mean, me colouring white on white is a little bit tricky, but anyway, let's go back onto the back. Another good for colouring in I got from Tina Cox, using the light panel underneath. If you use, I wonder if I can, if I got that switched on, let's see what will happen, because it's a really nice way of showing. Let's see, I don't think it will, it's just a little tip. If I bring that in there, one, is it on? Am I plugged in? Hang on, let me just flick that switch on the floor. Excuse me for a moment, I'm just gonna go downstairs and switch it on. There we go. That was quick. Hooray. That was my head. So let's have a look. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So you can really see with the light panel whether you've gone right up to the edges. So it's another little tip for colouring in as well. Now I've gone over the edges. I'm not going to use this light panel all the time, but it was just to show how you can really, it can help with colouring in, whether you're using the pencils or whether you're using the pens. Okay. So just see, and when I go back on with the pencil, I can start to build up that colour as well if I want to intensify. Now when we did the butterflies, we combined two colours together and you can get a really nice blend, like from reds into yellows to create the oranges, blues into yellows to create greens. So you can really sort of mix it up. Okay, so I'm going to turn the light panel off now, but it was just a little tip just to show you if you struggle with your colouring, especially in smaller areas, the light panel can make a difference. So there we go. And we do them in two sizes, so depending on how you want to use that. Now I know I've gone over the edge, so I'm going to take, I'm not worried about the white line on this side, but I've gone over the edge of that line. So I can take my eraser and just tidy up the lines. Okay, so that's coloured in using the blending pen with the Dorso oil. Now if I'm going to go in and just go direct on here like we was showing at the beginning and just go on, because when I first started parchment craft I thought that's how I had to colour in, because my skills in relation to colouring in on parchment were not that good. Okay, but it's like anything, you get confidence, you watch the right people, just like Barb. I learnt my colouring in skills from Barb over the years, just watching how she colours in, the different techniques, the different how to hold the pencil, if you want a light gradient of colour. So now when I turn that over, although we have the intensity of the colour, it's very grainy. Now you may want that effect with the paisley to give it more of an earthy colour tone. But again, it's like for like, isn't it? You can decide what type of finish you want. So by having the options of using it with the blending oil, the Dorso oil, or just direct onto, let me bring this up a little bit. I don't try and bring it up a little bit closer before it goes out of focus. But can you see the difference? Okay, how far am I going to go before it goes all blurry, or before I go out of shot? They look like two little eyes. I can see a little nose there, but can we see that? Really, there's a real difference between the two. Okay. So that's using the pencils when we come to colour in. And when I come to do my finished project, which we're going to look at, I'm going to colour in with the pencils as well. But let's have a look at the pens. So if I take the blue, which is really, it's a nice, beautiful, vibrant blue. So this is number 28 from the Perga Colour Exclusive pens. And they're double-ended. So you've got a really nice, fine detail nib for getting into the smaller areas. And then you have a nice bullet nib for the larger areas. And I didn't realise, but you can tell, I mean, you've got the little image on the pen itself. So this is a thicker bullet, so we know the thick one is up there. But also the end that's got the fine end has got grooves on the actual barrel of the pen. So that Glynis Whitehead told me about that. I didn't realise that. I just picked up the pen, and how many times do you pick up pen? Oh, wrong nib. Ah, that's the nib that I want. So it's great to be able to have that as a way of remembering. Excuse me. Let's have a sip of coffee. So again, we have options when we come to using the pens. We can go direct to the parchment, and again, I'm still working on the back, and I'm not putting any pressure on, and I'm just going on very, very lightly. The pen, the bristles on the pen are just very lightly stroking the parchment. And now I do have to be careful that I don't go over the line because I can't remove it. Okay. So we've coloured that in, and this is going to give us a real intense colour as well. Now I can see from here, I haven't gone right up to the edge. And again, this is another great time to use the light panel. Look, you can see there instantly where I've come away from the edge of the line. So I can take the light panel and then it will just help me go right up to the edge. See? I'm not putting, and if you're worried about using the large nib, use the fine nib. If I go to the fine, because I've got that little bit there, if I'm just worried, there we go. See? But the light panel, it really does make a difference, especially if you want to get right up to that edge. Okay, so that gives us a really nice vibrant look using the pens direct onto the parchment. And again, for me personally, I would always colour in on the back because it's more forgiving. Now, if I want to get a softer tone, do you remember how we've got like the two different tones, one by using with the Dorso oil and one with the pencil direct? We can do the same with the pens as well. And pens are not just for parchment, you can use them for your everyday colouring as well. So if I take my mix mat, I'm using the one for water, and if I scribble out, let's just pop this to one side, I'm going to scribble out onto my mat some of the blue, pop my lid on, and then I'm going to take one of the water brushes. Now, this water brush hasn't had any water in it at all. These are the ones that I keep specifically for working with the pens on parchment. Okay, and then what we're going to do is I can pick up that colour because the mix mat allows it to stay wet longer. And then I can take my water brush pen and I can now go direct onto the parchment. And what that's going to do, it's going to give me a softer colour tone. Now, remember when we was doing this with the, I think we did it with the butterflies, didn't we? And I said, the only thing you need to be wary of is that you can see there on that light how the ink seems to stay wet a little bit longer. So if you're going to colour in, I would start here and work my way down. Okay, and again, but with the water brushes, they've got that really fine nib to them, the fine point. There we go. I can really see. And now when I turn this over, I've got lighter shade. Okay. So that's using the pens direct on this side and water brush with no water on this side. And then this end is using the pencils. So the pencil direct and then the pencil blended. Okay, so it gives you the choices if you want to get different color shades and you think, oh, the pencils that I've got, like maybe the polychromo, maybe there isn't a color that you think is going to work and you want to get that softer tone. Practice on a piece of parchment first to see what it's going to look like, whether you go direct and sort of just leave it unblended, or whether you add the Dorso oil and blend to get a softer color. Again, try with the pens. You may think, oh, I've never seen that technique before by using the water brush. You just need to make sure that the water brush has never had any water. I mean, if it's had water in it, I'd say pop it on a radiator and just let it dry. And then, then that's good to go. And there's 3 different size nibs as well. So if you're colouring in a larger area, then you could use one of the larger nibs. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm sure it does. How are we all doing? Are we all okay? The light panel does make a difference. As I just saw a comment, I keep forgetting to use my light panel when colouring. It really does make a difference, and it makes it easier as well. Again, I know I say it all the time, if I'm at home, I do craft on my lap, and I don't have the big light, and I don't like the brightness, and it's never really a bright light. And so to have the illumination of the light panel underneath can make a difference. Whether I'm tracing out the design, whether I'm doing white work, pico cutting, perforating, colouring, I use it for all different parts of the parchment craft. And you'll find that once you get it, you'll think, oh, why didn't I have it sooner? You don't have to have it, obviously, but if you're going to use a darker parchment like the black parchment, then that really is key. The lovely Jane Telford did a beautiful project on the Groovi Tuesday over on the Clarity Matters blog using black parchment, and she used her signature pink for her butterflies. Absolutely. The contrast of the black and the pink was amazing. So if you missed out, don't forget, every Sunday over on the Clarity Matters blog, we do a beautiful step-by-step tutorial using the Groovi system. And some of the techniques you'll be able to pick up from that we've covered here on Groovi Tuesday, or you may think, oh, is that how easy that is to be done? I'm going to give that a go and just practice. Do you know what I mean? It's all about, there's no one watching you to say, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And if you're doing it in your own home as well, what happens if it goes wrong? What have I always said? It's a bit of parchment. Okie dokie. Right, so let's have a look. Where's my piece that I've been working on? Here we go. So let's pop all these bits to one side. Now I'm going to go with the pencils on mine. Okay, what are you going to go with on yours? You're going to go pencils, or are you going to go pens? What do you reckon? Are we going to go 50-50? You could do a combination of both. No rules to say you've got to do everything in one medium. Whether you do the pens in one, you may decide you want to do the little bits. You want a more vibrant blue. You like that beautiful colour of the Perga colour pens to make it stand out more. It's entirely up to you. It's just giving you different options. The only thing I would say, if you are new to colouring in on the parchment, then the pencils are more forgiving because it allows you to rub out if you make a mistake. So for the ease, I'm going to go with my pencils, and I'm going to do my blue areas first. So I'm going to go, you can decide exactly where you want to apply your colour. I'm going to perforate the middle of this, so I don't need to worry about putting any colour on there. So I'm just putting a very light colour down of the blue. Okay, now for me, I find if I do all my colouring first, then I go and do all my blending, and it means I use less nibs. And when you look at this, you think, oh, look, he's missed a bit, there we go. You don't need that much colour. You only need, if I bring that piece of white card in, it's really, really close, isn't it? If I bring that in, you can see how scratchy it looks. Because remember, the magic of the Dorso oil is going to soften it and give it that beautiful look. Now, if you want the more grainy effect, then put a little bit more pressure on. Apply more pressure using the pencil. So I'm going to go, that's going to be blue, and then this part here is also going to be blue. Okay, I'm going to turn the work so it's more comfortable to me. There you go. And I'm going to fill in these areas. Nice and easy. And again, I'm not worried if I go over those lines. Even once I've blended, I can still rub out. Makes no difference whatsoever. So I'm going to put blue in those areas. So let's bring that in so you can see. So that's where I've put my blue. I mean, you can look. Looks absolute rubbish. I haven't even gone straight to the point there, but the blending nibs will do all that for me. I've gone over the edge there, but again, I'm not worried about that. All I'm going to do is rub it out when I'm finished. But actually, this bit in the middle is going to be cut out anyway. So it's entirely up to you. Then we're going to put some blue into this one. Okay, and then while I've got the blue pencil in my hand, I'm going to carry on and put the blue down on the second part. See? For me, the colouring in part of it is just as relaxing as tracing out the initial design. Now, if you've gone for the designer parchment, then you don't have to colour in at all. You can just leave it exactly how it is, or you can erase the colour. That's the magic of the designer parchment, all of our coloured parchment actually, that you can remove the colour with the eraser pencil. So I put my blue in there. I'm undecided yet on what colour I'm going to do my letters. So I think I'm going to think about that. I might see on this one, I did blue for the letters and then yellow for the boxes, but I could do a blue S, a yellow S, a blue N, and then alternate the colours behind it. I haven't decided on my one yet with love what I'm going to do. So I'm going to leave that for now. Then I'm going to take the orange colour pencil. So this is number B9. Okay. And now I'm going to, where's my piece gone that I'm looking at? So now what I'm going to do, again, just a little circular motion. Can you see that? Okay, yeah. There we go, a little circular motion. I'm not putting too much pressure on. I'm just scribbling out the colour. So I've done that in yellow or orange. Then I'm going to do it in these little peaks. I think it makes it look regal and gold. It adds that real touch of elegance to it. It's funny how by using a couple of different colours, the different look you can get. Okay. And then on these ones here, and it doesn't matter, oh, can't see what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if I go over these little white dots in the middle, because the colour is going to sit behind it. I'm going to put some colour on here. Okay. And I'm also going to put colour in these little peaky bits as well. Have you decided what colours you're going with? I bet if Jane's doing this, Jane will be all pink. Pretty in pink, is that Jane? So don't forget to check out that blog from Sunday. Beautiful pink. See, for me, I love the effect of the two-tone, sort of whether you go like, I mean, I'm just using the yellow and the blue. Sometimes just a couple of colours can make something look more elegant. So that's one end done. So if I bring that in, we're looking on the back, so it's really scratchy, and on the front, it's okay, but I know that it's going to look nicer once we've blended it out with the Dorso oil. Okay. What's that? Chrissy's gone with my colours. Oh, that's lovely. It's so nice. I think these two colours, sometimes the hardest bit is choosing the colours. I remember when we first started colouring in on parchment back in the day, when we first introduced Groovi System, we'd spend a long time creating the artwork, applying colour. As I say, my colouring was very basic, and it was very simplistic as well, because that was all that I knew at the time. And then we'd spend, I don't know, say an hour or something sort of making this piece of artwork. And then we'd spend about 15, 20 minutes trying to find a backing paper for it to go on. So I've always found now that it's easier if you choose your backing paper first and then choose some colours from the backing paper to tone in with the artwork. Now, if you go with something like the Indian summer, you've got some beautiful bright oranges and yellows. So you get a really nice sort of summer look to it. If you want something a little bit more moody, you've got Northern Lights. But I thought because we was doing this one and it was going to be a man's card or man's bookmark, then I'd go sort of blues and golds, give it that regal look to it. But let me just bring in, what one have I got to hand here? Let's have a look. I've got an Amazonia. Okay, I'm going to zoom out now. Ooh, zoom out. Need to go that way on the camera. Hey, there we go. See, with the Amazonia, you've got some beautiful, rich colorways in here. So you've got some lovely, I mean, look at that. So you could pick some reds and some burgundies from the pencils or the pens. You've got a nice mix of pinks and blues. So sometimes, as I say, it's easy. You take your piece of artwork, you place it over the top and you think, oh yeah, that would work. Or maybe that would work. Or go that way. So for example, if I was going for this one, I'd probably go about there with my piece of paper, and then I could pick up those beautiful pinks and reds, and then down the bottom I would do this one in greens and blues, or vice versa, swap it around. So you get the sort of the positive and the negative. I love, this is one of my favorite. Look, this is my favorite one. That's all I've got left of that one. The beautiful rich, look, I didn't even want to throw those bits away because I knew I could use them in another project. But look how zesty that one looks. See, you could go all bright greens on that one. See, or again, if you wanted something more subtle, the only thing you need to be aware of, the lighter the color on the background, the more color you need to add to your parchment so it stands out more. See, that's a nice colorway. Or that's really rich. So you go with some greens. Oops, you can't see that one. Go with some greens and some burgundies, and that would be, look, I reckon it looked like velvet. And this is just from the Amazonia collection. Look, you've got those beautiful oranges. I do love a bit of orange. See, and I'd pick up the orange to highlight. But then if I was going to pico cut that out, it would reveal some of the color from behind as well. Oh, look at that. That's nice. See, reds, blues, teals, bring it over. So sometimes it's good to get your paper pad out, have a look at what color you want to work with, and then choose your papers to go with it. Because sometimes, say, it's very subtle on here, but it means you'd really need to bring those color. Because of the white line art on a more paler color, it's different. You need to really bring those colors out. So the darker color will always make it that much easier. Okay. Look, see there, you've got those beautiful sort of pastel pinks, but you can just about see the yellow. So I'd go really rich in color. And as I said, with the pencils and with the pens, you can build up your layers of colors as well. So if you do the color and then you start to sort of color it in and you put too much oil on your nib, then, oh, wrong way, there we go. And you've put too much oil on the nib and it takes it off. Don't worry, because you can go back in and go over it a couple of times. So now if I take, let's have a look, I'm going to take my nib and I'm going to do my lightest color first. Now I've still got plenty of oil on my spot on sponge, but I'm going to test it first. Where's my scrap? Let's test it on this, because it doesn't matter if I, so I'm going to test it on here first to see how much. And you can see, can you see? Yeah, look, you can really see how how much oil's on there. And that's not going to ruin this. I can come back and use this. All it's going to do is evaporate. But it's just, I mean, I could dip it back into the sponge, into a clean area, and the sponge will help absorb the colour, absorb the oil as well. So then if I now go into a circular motion, I can start to see how the colours, the pigment's now being broken down. And as the oil starts to evaporate and bleed out, evaporate, the colour becomes more intense, and it moves. Let me bring, where's my Groovi guard gone? I do love losing my Groovi guard. I've got about 10 of them somewhere. There we go. There's my emergency one. I put an emergency one, so I know I just need to remember to put the emergency one back. See, and then just that little set. And I'm not putting any pressure on the nib whatsoever. It's just like I'm just stroking very lightly, or tickling. I can't say that word. Tickling. Yes, it sounds wrong, doesn't it? I'm just tickling the parchment with the nib of my pen. And what it's doing, you can see that straight away. If I take a white piece of paper, look how vibrant that looks now. Look at the difference between where I've blended and where I need to carry on with my blending. Okay. So then we can go in, and I'm doing all, because I'm just keeping solid colours, I'm going to keep this nib for my yellow, so I can keep it in a pot. I've got 2 different pots, because the nibs you can use with your ink pads as well. So again, have a look at your ink pads. You can colour in on parchment with those as well. Squidge it out onto your mat, onto your little mix mat, like we did where we scribbled the pencil out. See, and then once you scribble it out, you could use the blending nib, or you could use the dry water brush, has to be dry, to pick up the colour and colour in with. So a nice dye base, like the little Artistry mini ink pads, they're great for colouring in on the back of your parchment. See how my voice is going? Because I'm colouring. Oh dear, oh dear. Are you having fun colouring in as well? It's great. To me, parchment craft, the Groovi system, the parchment itself, it's magic. I suppose it's like stamping as well, where you take a white piece of card or a plain piece of card, you stamp a beautiful design on it, and you create an instant piece of artwork. And it's where you then decide whether you want to add colour. And again, not everyone's into colouring in. So you may decide to just stamp onto designer paper or parchment. Then you'll still get a lovely effect from it. Those beautiful lino cut stamps that Barbara's designed. I mean, I've seen the lino cut that Barb's created them from, the actual original artwork. And I remember doing that back at school, and then what Barb's doing with it now to create beautiful designs. I mean, mine was quite basic back at school. I think it was just shapes more than anything. And those beautiful lino cut stamps, magical. I love that word, magical, because I think that's what crafting is. Crafting is magical on so many different levels, whether you're crafting because you're selling your cards, or crafting because you want to escape, crafting because you just enjoy getting happy with your hands. It really is magical. And that'd be from knitting. It's not necessarily just paper crafting. I mean, sometimes I like knitting scarves because they're quick and easy to do, and I don't need to think about it. I can either just do very simple, just do knit a row, purl, knit, purl, or I can just do it all in knit or all in purl. I suppose it's just that repetitiveness where I don't need to think about it. So if you was going to use your water brushes dry to colour in with the pens, I've just seen a question just pop up from the lovely Dawn. And all you need to do, so the tip, Dawn, it will stay, it will be stained. So I would keep one for yellow, but it will be stained, but it's dry. Okay. And now what you can do is you could just take a tissue and just wipe it on a tissue. Okay. But I would say, Barbara always says it with brushes. If you're going to use the stencil brushes, always have one just for yellow. And then it doesn't matter, that will always be a nice yellow. And then I can then pick up any other colour. So keep one for yellow, which is what I've done with that one. And where's my other one's gone? There we go. So this one's got, but you can see here, it's already got a stain of pink. I've used it on the green, but that is completely dry now. So I would now go back. You can run it under a warm tap, but the pigment will always stain. So for me, then I just leave it like that, and then I'll go back to it and pick up, and always test it first before you go onto your parchment craft, just to make sure that it hasn't reactivated your brush. So hopefully I've answered that for you, Dawn. Hope it wasn't too gobbledygook. So I've done my yellow, so we can see now how it's really starting to sort of stand out. My blue's still grainy, but we'll do that. I think what we'll do, I can't believe that time already, 5:02. 5:02 already. Oh dear. Wow. Sure does fly when you're having fun. Grooving and colouring. What better way to spend an hour? So I'm gonna, that nib now I'm gonna keep, and I'll pop that in my little box. And then I'm gonna go, look, I've got my blue one already. And then I'm gonna have a look at the blue area. So I'm gonna pick up a little bit of the oil again, dab it off on the sponge. You can see why it's all multicolours, can't you? Because I just go in and dab. And then because these have got a really fine nib to them, I can really get into the detailed, the small areas. And I'm just going to go down very, very slowly. Again, it's the same as before. No pressure. It's just a light tickling of the parchment. Okay. And if you're not sure, because it's such a fine area, if you're not sure whether it's blending, you've got choices, haven't you? You can take the light panel or just take a white piece of card. So we can see that's blended lovely. We can really see the difference, look. And it still needs a little bit of work. So I can just go in just with that tip. There we go. And just blend that out. It's a little bit tricky with the white on the white, but let's do that just so that you can sort of see how you get that blend. See? You can see it, can't you? You can really can see the difference. I know I say it, but I suppose because I do it naturally, I just take it for granted. And there we're going to go in on this area here. And again, I'm not worried that I've gone over that edge. I'm just going to come round. Going to go down the middle. Because all this is white work. In the middle. And then, how are you getting on? Are you at the same stage as me? Or are you still trying to work out what colours to go with? Okay. So look, you can just thin that out there. And again, let's say if you've gone over the lines, then don't worry, because we can just take an eraser pencil. For me, I prefer the white eraser pencil. Let's move that out of the way. so I can see. So you can really get in to those areas. Now the only thing you do need to be careful of, so I can see it down here, it's not going to affect anything, but where the blue meets the yellow, it's starting to turn it green. Okay. But it's all about sort of just building up gradually with the colour. Now you can, let's say, put more colour on top. So I could go in with that beautiful orange again and intensify the colour. I could get some nice shading on the colour as well, just by that same technique that we spoke about last week, where you do, if this was your design, so it's what Barb's always taught. So you go a quarter, then you go half, and then you go 3/4. And if you do that on top of one another, following that process, and it's what I learned from Barb years ago, you do that process, then what happens is that this area here, so if I go now on top with the same sort of pressure and then go again, then what happens, you get a lighter, it sort of builds it up, doesn't it, to give it a real, I suppose it's like the white work effect, isn't it? Okay. So it's a nice way. And there's so many different colouring techniques, whether you use the traditional sort of like tinter inks or whether you use a pen. You can colour in with the Dorso crayons as well. You just mix it on the match with some oil to turn it into a paint, and you get a really nice thick, not gloopy, you just dilute it down. Gloopy is the wrong sort of way. You don't want gloopiness on your parchment. Okay. See, so that's one half done. So let's have a look. So we've got one half done, which is nice and smooth. I've still got that little bit there, but then when I bring that over, you can see the difference. See, just by softening the color, it's also changed the color of that blue. It's turned it more into sort of like a teal like color. See, and then when we pop that on there, the paper really does bring it out. Okay. No, it's clever. I love it. If I wanted these to be green, then I could put a little bit of blue. I'm on the back, still working on the back. I could put a little bit of blue and then drag that blue in to the yellow to get a really nice green as well. So it's all about just experimenting. And remember, we experimented on that piece earlier. So if you're not sure what your color is going to be looking, you don't have to draw out the whole thing. Just take an element of it, just for you to practice. If you didn't want to do white work in these little areas here, like that I've done, then you may decide you want to put color in there. It's all about just having a play and seeing what works for you. It's the same with the picot cutting. Okay, so this week's homework. I'm terrible, aren't I? A really bad teacher giving you homework. Some of you would have already zoomed ahead and sort of coloured it in already. But I think by next week, I'm going to finish colouring in my other half, blending that colourway in so it's nice and soft so it matches the other end. I will have decided by then about my colour in my little sentiment. And then I think next week, we're going to have a look at the picot cutting. So the picot cutting, again, you can decide. If I go onto the black, we can see that in a little bit more detail. So I've picot cut this area here and this area here. If I wanted to, I could have done the middle of the O as well. But I thought, just keep it nice and easy, and we'll just do 2 little areas of picot cutting. And then that'll be the first part of next week, because it won't take us too long to do that. And I'll show you some little tips and tricks if you wanted to just perforate, if you want to just add a pattern in there. So we could, if you've got the basic grids to hand next week and you just want to perforate a pattern like we've done in the past with the butterflies. If you don't want to do your picot cutting, then that's fine. And then I reckon what we'll do is bring a nested plate. A square, a circle, an octagon, a hexagon, any of our nested plates you've got, whether you've got this little small square, if you've only got the little mini starter kit, don't worry, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how you can make a bigger square from the little square. You know how we extended that border around the outside. So all we need is a nested Groovi plate, any shape, and we can then interpret it. I'm going to stick with the square just so that it's easier for everybody else at home, but you can go with whatever shape you have in your Groovi stash. So the only other thing I've got to tell you is don't forget tomorrow, back in the shack with Barb at 10 o'clock and still in Camelot. I love that beautiful flourishes. So I'll be in the room as well with you. So if you've got any questions tomorrow, thank you to Jilly for helping out. I've seen lots of questions and lots of answers coming up. So back again tomorrow with Barb at 10 o'clock on Facebook Live at 10 o'clock. So I hope you've enjoyed that. And I will look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday, same time, same place. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care now. Bye-bye.